Okie dokie. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Arts Commission. Today is Monday, May 2nd, 2022, and it is 5 p.m. And let's start with the roll call.
Let the record show all commissioners are present except for Commissioner Hebert.
All right. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we can let the record show we have Commissioner Hebert present now. And special presentations and proclamations, we have none. Oral communications, it looks like we have none. And changes to the agenda, it looks like we have none. So moving on to approval of the minutes, we have approval of the April 4th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to accept the minutes. I did have one question about it, but I think we'll be covering it on our work review. It just wasn't listed in there.
Oops. I second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, a second, and we can all vote on our screens now. And the motion passes with 6 yeas, no nays, no abstentions. Moving on to approval of the April 25th, 2022 special meeting minutes. Someone who was there.
I'm sorry, shouldn't we have an abstention because Mr. Dilley wasn't here last
Oh,
week?
we should have an abstention, actually, yes. For the
If he,
previous-
Commissioner Dilley, if you read the minutes and listened to the meeting, then you can vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, moving on to approval of April 25th special meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, and the motion passes with 3 yeses and 3 abstentions.
Is absent, so I'm not able to vote.
Right, so what is your vote?
Okay, moving on then to action items. 8A, Commission for the Arts Annual Work Plan. Recommended action that we finalize and recommend to City Council to approve the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 work plan. And you'll be happy to know we will not be reading every single agenda item tonight, but instead we'll be looking at ones that we've done changes to or ones that need to be addressed. Okay, so let's see. With goal 1, appointing 3 commissioners to serve on the board. So we have the EFA board. We now have commissioners will serve 1-year term on the board of directors of the EFA as defined in the MOU. On cultural tourism, we have the appointed commissioner will attend cultural tourism meetings and provide updates. And for the community grant program, the appointed commissioner will serve with panelists from other commissions to review grant applications in May and make recommendations to the city for funding. And so on EFA, we have myself, Corrales Schmidt, Lees, and Valenzuela. On the CTC, or the cultural tourism, we have Commissioner Hebert. And on community grant program, we have Valenzuela. Does that all seem right? All right, getting nods of
I
approval
think we
here.
left it pretty vague who was going to do the Cultural Tourism Committee, depending on whose schedule it worked into. Didn't we? I mean, this is
Well-
fine with me, I just didn't.
Oh, we
I
had,
have-
was there maybe gonna be a second, do you mean? On cultural tourism, because I had kind of swapped with Commissioner Hebert for.
Oh, you did, okay,
EFA.
that's fine. Okay.
And point of
and
order for the chair.
Valenzuela is on the community grant program, and it doesn't really look like, oh, I see CGP, that's what those, okay, sorry.
Point of, I just wanted to mention too, for the new commissioner, that we can have up to 3 individuals serve on each of these committees. So if there's one that you want to serve on, jump in and you can let them know.
Yeah, I'd love to be on the Cultural Tourism Committee.
Okay, I'll make a motion to add Commissioner Dilly to the Cultural Tourism Committee. Do we need a motion for that or no? Okay, we don't need a motion.
To be added, just as a point of order, you don't have to motion. You can, as long as it doesn't exceed 3.
Okay, excellent. Without any other changes, we'll move along to arts advocacy. So under assisting EFA with fundraising activity and programs, commissioners will assist and support EFA as advocates and volunteers as requested. Assisting city and staff with, this is under number 3, Americans for the Arts and Economic Prosperity. Commissioners will help identify Encinitas nonprofit cultural arts programs and events and assist city staff in the survey and data gathering process at such events according to the AEP 6 guidelines. And let's take a careful look under what we have for number 4, present an updated draft arts master plan for city council consideration. Ad hoc to work on arts master plan draft for commission review and city council consideration. New elements may include updated focus and priorities, cultural arts district designation, public art funding ordinance, Pacific View Arts and Cultural Center. Does this seem encompassing to everyone? Okay. So moving.
I would just like to say that my concern about that is the master plan is such a big chunk getting it through, and everything that adding on to it means that none of it'll get done until the master plan is done. I would like to see them worked on, whether, even if they're worked on individually, but worked on individually so that they can, we don't finish with one and then start with the other, but we work on them at the same time. So everyone that's involved with that, if you could take that under consideration.
So what would you want to decouple from that?
Well, there are several of them have been decoupled. And I just worry that they need to be worked on at the same time so that you're not staggering it and taking forever to get it approved, because it's important that it get done. Is there any way to get it, well, they've been decoupled and still nothing's gotten done, so I don't know what to do about it.
I could chime in here. One of the things that you could add to this work plan item is to develop develop goals that go along with a timeline as basically a first step in that. That could be a way to make sure that you're staying on track.
Okay.
Those items. But I just mentioned to Colette, the current draft does call out all of these elements. So just wanted to make that clear as well.
So what we've been advocating for the last 6 months is we could take the work to date, and I think I'm going to hopefully translate some of your concerns.
Okay, good.
Which are, the biggest, most challenging issues in the master plan are probably the art funding ordinance, which
Right.
is a challenge for any public agency to take that on, and the Pacific View site planning effort, either in concept or in architecture or in use, however you view that. There's a lot of work in that master plan that's fairly complete, fairly solid, and I think a lot of people agree to the premise and the statement in the master plan. So what we would advocate is, can we kind of complete the review between the commission and the staff, the ad hoc committee and the staff, and then I think we could present it as a fairly complete document through the ad hoc committee. Then you get into the kind of procedural process that the entire commission, as I understand it, can't view it because at that point it becomes a public document.
Mm-hmm.
So when you use the term decoupling, would that say that we have a master plan with other elements that might be considered in the future? I mean, that's kind of a staff decision and a city manager's decision and maybe a mayor's decision that says, do we want to have a master plan? No, we have these other two challenging parts to it, which we might add later, or do we wait to incorporate it today? Either way, I'd like to finish the bulk of the plan. And 3 of us have been working on it for a couple of years. Colette, both as a commissioner and a staff member. So do we want to translate that into a goal or a timeline element? Because, there are sensitivities about Pacific View and the public art funding process. So shall we craft some kind of goal statement or change in text in the work program that says, let's finish what we know we can finish, and then maybe the staff can give us some guideline on when we can expect to move into the other more challenging parts. I'd like to finish. I've been on it for 3 years, so how can we put that together? Do you want us to create a statement, or do you have some helpful guideline?
So you're right. This has been around a while, and I've seen it on both sides now. I believe that as an ad hoc, you can continue to move forward on those pieces, and I understand what you're saying about some of those sensitivities, but I don't think that those can hold you up. I know I still owe you a marked up document, which I'm going to make sure that you get a hold of this week. But I'd like to suggest that you continue moving forward with these goals, knowing that it says new elements may include, meaning that that is not the complete list of what can be in there. And so you can continue to work on the percent for art, the public art funding element. And ultimately, this is a document that you are going to be presenting, that you are recommending be accepted. So any number of things can happen. Parts of it may be pulled out, parts of it may be adopted before the plan as a whole is. So I wouldn't let the order of its acceptance interfere with your moving forward, continuing to get these things developed.
Okay,
So-
so as far as I'm concerned, it's ready to be completed. You know, there is a very lengthy discussion on public art acquisition and funding. And there's actually an ordinance written into this package that could be adopted, and that's the mechanical part of how you raise the money by making a part, a construction budget has a part that's called public art. So it's there. We've just been waiting for the last staff editing, which if you give us to the ad hoc committee this week, then I think we can basically finish. The ad hoc committee could tell the staff, or in our record as a commission, we think we're done.
Well, the way I see it, then I think if we leave this as the intended outcome, that's not hindering anything with it moving forward.
No, just,
So-
we've been waiting for the staff's edits.
Like, okay, I
So-
appreciate the discussion on this.
So one point of order that I'd like to make is when coming to the one piece that I would look at separately, and it can be, looked at in this work plan item, is the ordinance. And the reason for that is because an ordinance requires a first and second reading to the city council. So it would be good to identify the timeline for that, how to bring that piece forward. That's the one piece that I would think that we'd want to look at independently because of that procedural, the procedure for that.
Right. It's a part of the package of research, and it's a part of the presentation, and how the city staff, the attorney, and the manager and so forth want to separate that in. And, I'm used to seeing ordinances and master plans move uniformly through
In
the process.
tandem.
So, but it's written, and mechanically how you edit and present, and, and if it sits in one document or if it sits separately, but for the convenience of the review, it's in one text package currently. But we also have a separate work item, which is the ordinance, so you can recognize that independence of the ordinance versus the master plan.
Actually, it's not on this new work plan.
But it is.
I didn't see it.
Well, I can't see the whole work plan.
What was the question?
Ordinance is not separate.
The ordinance is not separate because it's something that is being worked on in connection with the Arts Master Plan, so it would have been redundant to have been a separate line item.
But there shouldn't be any problem pulling it out of the still have the master plan, but pull it out so that it can be reviewed
Correct.
separately, which I think maybe
Sure.
in a time, would allow it to be approved maybe more rapidly than the whole master plan.
Correct.
So I think we could do that.
Would that require a motion?
Would staff like to give feedback on what type of a timeline realistically, the subcommittee is more or less finished until they get their edits? I mean, what kind of a timeline could we come up with here right now?
To be quite honest, we can't answer that question right now.
Okay.
We have a new city attorney that we have to meet with and talk about the ins and outs of the ordinance. This is something that we can work with the ad hoc on to develop a reasonable timeline on, and then we can talk a little bit more with our risk department and with our city attorney on this. But that's something that we can't answer tonight on that. But the verbiage here has that included as part of it. It's procedural to just pull it out and bring it forward as a separate item. I don't know that you need to change your work plan item.
So just so I understand, we have the flexibility to pull it out when the time is right, that it's ready for that to be And that could
Yes.
have to be taken
Yes,
up.
so we would work with the ad hoc committee and determine a time to bring that as a separate item to the commission to make a recommendation on. Like I said, it's part of this, and we would just write it in the staff report that we're looking at that piece of the item.
Yeah, logically, when you're doing something, trying to present this sort of very encompassing package, any reader's going to want to know, well, okay, how do you actually mechanically raise the money to do it? So, yeah, so that's why it's there. I mean, when you write this package, you have to think into the future of how you actually raise the money, how it works. Otherwise, it's a kind of a concept, but what's the reality of it? So, if you, yes.
Thank you.
So in terms of timeline on the ad hoc committee side, if we could present a finished draft master plan at the end of August, that might be reasonable.
I'm just going to say that's very aggressive. And the
Not-
reason.
Not from our side. I don't think.
Right. You have to look at it from a staffing
Sure.
perspective. We have 3 public art projects right now that are in the works. That's very aggressive as far as getting that completed. I would say possibly around the holidays.
Well, I'm answering the chairman's question about, I thought from the ad hoc committee side, what our schedule might be. So if we receive the staff edits, could we be ready, if you want to put that in the work program, could we be ready by the end of the summer? I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. So we can return it back to the staff in September for them to look at it again. So I think we can do that as an ad hoc committee.
However, that wants to show up in either the minutes or the work program.
Commissioners, I also think that this needs to be a little bit of a collaborative approach from this point on, more like where Colette and I are sitting in with the ad hoc committee and we're having discussions about this rather than being a back and forth document, because we really need to talk through some of the items that are in there.
Okay. But there are still a lot of edits that are unfinished. So if you look at the last package that dates back to, I'd have to look it up, last summer, a year ago even,
Right.
there are yellow highlighted sections that are blank or are incomplete.
Correct.
That's our goal, is to complete all the verbiage, fill in all the highlights, fill in all the blanks. And then, yes, as we did to get to this point, there were at least a half a dozen meetings, kind of page turn editing meetings between the ad hoc committee and the staff. So, yes, I just want to get to the point where the document is complete from our perspective.
Agreed.
So I could say by the end of August, that could be accomplished.
Sounds like a goal.
Okay.
Well, intended outcome for the ad hoc committee's collaborative efforts with staff to be completed by August 2022?
I'd actually correct that, just to be very specific, that would be the ad hoc committee's completed text, filling in the blanks, and that piece, I think, is what the staff wants to use as a collaborative document to discuss page turning, talk about all the details. I just think we need to just finish the text.
Right. And so I'm going to suggest that after you receive the document, go through it, and then we set a time for us to review, and then we'll keep that moving. But
Yes.
it seems, if I'm understanding from the discussion you're having, that work plan item, though, is feeling like it's got everything in it that you want it to have.
Yeah, I was trying to ask a detailed question that's doesn't even appear in this level of broader discussion.
Are we okay with leaving the intended outcome today without a timeline and approving this work plan?
I am, because the minutes capture all of this discussion.
Okay. I'm fine with that too. All right, moving on then. Support for the formation of San Diego. So this is the County Arts Council. I think that one's pretty straightforward, unless anyone wants to chime in. Now, under number 6, assist with the promotion of city arts and culture events. We had some discussion about this one last time, and now the verbiage for outcome is commissioners will assist city staff with the submission of programs and events to public calendars, as well as traditional and social media channels to help increase visibility in the community. Sound good to everybody? I feel like that about covers it. All right. Moving on to number 7, research the feasibility for a program of hosted artist homestays. And the ad hoc will research the feasibility for a program to host homestays for visiting artists while performing or is exhibiting as part of city programs and events, report findings to make recommendations to commission the city staff. Sound good to everybody?
I just want to interject that the blank was really to allow Steve to
Oh, that's right.
realize
Okay,
that
okay.
those blanks are an invitation to participate in any way you'd like. That was my
I appreciate
intention.
Not really understanding, how everything works, but, yeah, I can see how that, and then, I want to make sure to go through and look at it and also be realistic on how I intend to spend my time. But yes, I will, I'll let you know.
Members can jump in and out of goals, right, throughout the year? Once, okay? So-
Absolutely.
Yep, so,
So the final publication, I assume you'll take the blanks out when it's presented to the council. That was
Yes.
just sort of an internal
Right. If you
invitation.
add whatever gets added in at this
Yeah.
point, I will, but yes, commissioners can come in and out as long as it doesn't exceed 3 in any ad hoc.
okay. Now, under public art, number 8, we had robust discussion on. I'll look at this a little more carefully. So we have support the public art policy. Specific focus includes, but is not limited to, city-funded projects. Sculpture installation program, El Portal undercrossing, Olympus Park pending grant funding, and then privately funded projects and donations.
I quickly, one question. I actually missed this last time. Is these, I think of it as a sculpture pad installation program. What is the term of art in the city's management of the program? Is that how it's known, sculpture installation?
That's the current word, because the pedestals have actually been put in.
Right.
So those will stay, and that's the sculptures that are going to sit on those that are going to,
Yeah, I understand. I
Change
just,
out.
when we went through it, I asked the question, where's the sculpture pad? And it's
Right.
actually right there. Does
Well,
it
'cause
have to be more specific, or is that how it's shown in the
right.
capital program? And
Because for a long time, it was a pedestal program, because that was a whole project in and of itself, was identifying the location and the funding and all of that. Front row seat to that one. So now, fortunately, we've moved on to the next part, which is actually putting art on those lovely pedestals.
could this
Okay.
include other locations, or when you read that title, do you think only of the 5 pads, or is there other opportunity? I want to know if we have to be very specific about it.
Currently, we are only looking at those 5.
Okay.
That is the project in front of us. Because your work plan includes city-funded projects, should additional sites become a city-funded project, it would then still be within that line item.
It looks as though it does say, but is not limited to, right? So,
Mhm.
And we could always have a privately funded project pop up that's a sculpture too, which has happened. Okay, so moving into who is all involved with this, the city-funded sculpture, we have Commissioners Abraham and Redlitz with a blank, open to join. We have a couple where we need some folks. El Portal, we have Commissioners Abraham and myself, and that one should probably be coming around to us pretty quickly too, so if anyone would like to be the third on that, speak now.
Actually, I was talking to Colette about it, and apparently, does everybody know that we didn't get any applications?
Well,
Applicants?
I don't know, do you all know that we received no applications?
I'm aware.
I may have only shared that with the ad hoc. So no applications were received. We are going to be re-releasing it with a different timeline, and it is our hope that that'll happen in the next week or so.
If neither of our new members want to be on that, I would like to be on that.
And that's the El Portal crossing underneath the train tracks that's currently being built. Okay.
I'd like to be on the city-funded sculpture.
Oh, great.
That would be nice for me.
Excellent. So we'll add Commissioner Dilly to city-funded sculpture.
And we appreciate that because if you've never done art selection, there is kind of a process, and it's nice to have a transition of people that have done a lot of it to a newer member, and then kind of share that information as we go through our various tenures on the commission.
Yes. And we also have Commissioner Lees joining El Portal. Okay, so we have TBDs on Olympus, private and donations.
I'm happy to be on those, actually.
Oh, for the future, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to be on Olympus, since that's my neighborhood park.
Yeah, I'd like to be on that one too, pending, obviously, how that pans out.
Chair Curl-Smith, I just wanted to point out too that work plan item right now is to assist with research for grant funding for that location. Right now, there is no funding for that location, so that's the specific goal or outcome of that
For
goal.
Olympus.
For Olympus, yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that would be,
Add.
once there's funding, then we could talk about the next steps.
Okay, so the I'd like to read the outcome for that one. The ad hoc will research grant funding opportunities, as mentioned, at the request of city staff. Ad hoc will provide input and review projects. When appropriate, the commission will provide final recommendations for city council approval. Right. So moving on to number 9, which is to investigate feasibility of using outer spatial app to identify public art locations. So this one has nobody on it yet and is pretty new to us. The intended outcome is for an ad hoc to research the possibility of incorporating city public art visuals, locations, and information in the outer spatial app. Would staff be able to give us a little more context on outer spatial?
So last time I shared with the commission that the Easy to Hike app that we had for our trails was discontinued during the pandemic. The company actually folded. So we went out and searched for a new application for trails, and we actually found a new app called Outer Spatial that has many more capabilities than the Trails app did before. And right now, staff are actually working to build this app with our GIS. In the city. So we're hoping that this will be released sometime toward the end of summer, but it does have the ability to do programs on it. It has the ability to track other things rather than just trails and parks.
Awesome.
I'm interested in doing that stuff. If you,
As an app that is working the Outer Spatial app, is that are they using Google Maps to tell us locations, or are we going around the city and saying, and we're putting a pin on an area that we think may be an appropriate space? What is your experience with that? Or
So the best way to do this or to achieve this goal is that once we have the app built, determining what areas would you like to be identified in that app? So for instance, one that comes to mind for me is the Santa Fe project, where we have the mosaics under the under the overpass. That's one that just pops out in my head that we'd want to identify on that and lead to people toward. And you can actually, we have specific a web page or specific to that project. So you'd be able to actually put the URL on that app as well, so that people could then go and see what we all have as far as information for that site.
Interesting, thank you.
Okay. No more discussion. We'll move on to visual art. Number 10, assist with art night Encinitas pre-event planning, at event volunteering as well. That's for all of us, with myself and Commissioner Valenzuela on planning. And there was some discussion of this last time, but the intended outcome now reads as planning, ad hoc to assist staff in requested planning and implementation of art night to include selection of musical performances and programming, which looks fine to me. And volunteering, all commissioners will serve as and recruit volunteers for art night as greeters, shuttle hosts, and other duties as requested by staff.
And we have one coming up very soon.
We do, May 14th.
And I've had some conversations with commissioners here and there, and it does cover it in here, and I clarified again, that recruitment of volunteers is as valuable as showing up yourself. Sometimes the help comes ahead of the event, some of it happens on site at the event. It is a monumental event and one of the biggest ongoing things that we're doing in the arts. And your participation and really help making it come true and be successful for the community is a big deal. This event was generated within the commission. This was an idea that came out of many conversations from the commission. And I think I've said before, the way that things used to happen is all of the artists would have their own private reception for their exhibitions. So in any one exhibition cycle, there would be potentially 7 different events that commissioners were asked to go to within a 2-month period. So Art Night took that down to 1 event within a 2-month period. So it really lessened the burden on what was expected of commissioners. So it's in 2022, it was 6 events. Moving into 2023, it'll be 4 events in a year to participate in some way as a shuttle host, as a greeter. There's a lot of different ways. Recruiting volunteers. There's a lot of different ways that can have a very meaningful impact, and all of them are appreciated.
Thank you. And yes, I feel like some of the discussion was maybe people were hung up on there being like a hard number of events that we're supposed to be at, and that's no longer in the language. Does everyone seem okay with this? I'm fine with it. And yeah, we'll just keep encouraging more participation. I know myself, I'm going to be out of town in this next one, but I just went on Facebook for the first time in almost a year and posted something, and hopefully we'll have some new volunteers in my stead from that. Okay, so moving on to arts education, number 12, support existing city arts education programs and direct potential arts instructors to the city's RFP for recreation arts program instruction. So commissioners will promote the city's RFP for recreation arts program instruction to a variety of potential teaching artists across multiple disciplines with the goal of broadening arts offerings at city facilities. Seems pretty straightforward.
So
Okay.
this just means networking, to network, to promote it.
for a specific.
That is correct. And I just wanted to make a point too. We occasionally amend this document to add things that we're looking for specifically. So I would just take the RFP number off of it because it's ever changing. The other thing that we talked about, Colette and I, a little bit is that we do have a new art center that will be coming on in a couple of years. And one of the things that we talked about is possibly having a specific RFP just for arts instruction that's separate from our recreational and other programming, just to attract artists and performing arts instructors and such to come and teach here in Encinitas. So that'll be something that we're working on. So perhaps what we could do is change it to just RFPs for art instruction or arts-related instruction, whether it be performing, visual, all that kind of stuff. Then it's all encompassing to any RFP that we put out for instruction.
So I do have a question. So the visual selection committee has been merged with visual art, with the planning. Is that what happened? Because we used to have a visual selection committee work item, and now it's not on here. Or did I miss it?
Well, if you missed it, I missed it too, because I went back and forth looking for it.
It has
Yeah.
disappeared off of your work plan,
Yes.
and it was not intentional.
Oh, good, okay. So that goes under visual arts?
Yes. The exhibitions.
Yeah, I had that down here too. I was just looking where I.
Do I gotta hit this? Thank you.
And I would very
So
much like to be on that.
Should somebody be pulling it up maybe from the last
That's
one? Does
what
it
I
need to
was-
be read
We're
in order
discussing
to make
right
it
now.
onto tonight? Probably, yeah.
Okay, hold on, let me see if I can get to it.
Yeah, I have an undated version, which I think we saw in our last public meeting. And so is item 10, but that's been resorted totally. But it
Yeah,
was the
there
second
it
item
is.
under visual arts.
I think if we go to
Money's on Navarro finding it first.
Used to be.
We're going to pull up the last one, so just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, so this was the draft that we looked at the April meeting, number 10 here. Serve on the visual arts selection panel for the 2023 art exhibitions.
Okay, serve on the art selection panel for 2023 art exhibitions in the civic art spaces. We had commissioners Abraham, Lees, and Valenzuela, and up to 3 commissioners will serve on the ad hoc and participate on the panel to jury artist exhibition applications in October and present recommendations to city staff for the 2023 exhibitions. Can we insert that without any changes?
I'm willing to step down if anyone else wants to to join the ad hoc committee, especially our new commissioners?
The bulk of commission work, I'll just share, does happen in October. That's when all of the applications that have come in from artists will get reviewed. So they'll get sent out to you ahead of time, you review them, and then we have a group meeting. Generally, there are a couple of other members from the community who join the 3 commissioners on the ad hoc and are part of the Visual Arts Selection Committee.
I've never served on this and wouldn't mind. I'd like to.
Was that Kathleen stepping off? Did I hear that
Oh,
correctly?
no, it's me, Navardo.
Navardo, okay.
I'd like to stay on.
Okay. I knew I heard your voice in there. I couldn't remember where.
Irene?
Yes, I'm happy to stay on as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, for pointing that out. Glad to have that back
Actually,
on
it
the
was
work plan.
Navardo that, I was going to point it out, I just hadn't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, thank you, Navardo and Kathleen, yes.
Is this April 4? Yeah. This one?
So that's going to take us to our last 2.
All right,
And
there you go.
thank you. The last 2 present the commission work plan outcomes to city council. Council is advised, the outcome that's intended is that the council is advised of past year work plan outcomes, and 14 present the new work plan so that the council reviews and approves proposed work plan goals and intended outcomes. So I feel that we have a work plan. Do we need a motion to? Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion that we submit the current work plan now that we've added the visual arts component that was missing?
Yes, I will make a motion to incorporate all of the discussion into the newest version of the work plan, recognizing the minutes.
I will second that.
No.
All right, we're going to take roll orally, or the vote orally on this one, because Commissioner Hebert, your name is not showing on as a voting member. All right, so if you're in favor of this work plan with the changes discussed, say aye. Commissioner Corrales-Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Valenzuela,
Aye.
Commissioner Redlitz,
Aye.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Lees,
Aye.
Commissioner Hebert,
Aye.
and Commissioner Dilly.
Aye.
Let the record show it passes unanimously.
All right. Yes, so we're moving on to number 9, informational items. Director's report, Parks Rec, and Cultural Arts. Director Carlin.
All right, thank you, Chair Corrales-Schmidt and members of commission. I just have a few updates. We are working on right now our recreation summer guide. We're putting the final touches on that, and that will come out to residents on the 12th of May, and then registration will start on May 16th for that. We do, previous to this, a spring and summer guide that has all our summer camps in it. So this will have programs and classes that we have beyond those summer camps. May 14th, we're going to be holding Movie in the Park. It's going to be Encanto at Glen Park. One exciting thing that we're doing this year is we're pulling our old movie screen out, which is probably 4 or 5 times bigger than the screen that we normally use. So we're hoping that by bringing out the bigger movie screen that's a little bit more labor intensive, that we get a bigger crowd out there at Glen Park and we start seeing more people at our movie in the park events. So we're excited about that. And I wanted to thank recreation staff because they did an outstanding job when I gave them the direction to pull the old screen out, getting it out, cleaning it up, making sure it worked, and being ready with that. So I appreciate all their help on that. One thing that you're going to see, a press release was just released on this. We had some natural movement out on Beacon's Bluff today as far as the trail goes and the bluff itself. The press release has a lot of information in it, so please read that. Right now, Beacon's access is closed so that we can monitor that, so please be aware of that as we're moving into the summer months here. One other thing that you may have heard is that our park host, Terry Cision, who was over at Cottonwood Creek, passed away recently. So he had been a park host with the city for many years, and we appreciate all of his years of service to the community. He left behind a position over at Cottonwood Creek, and we actually released an RFQ today, a request for qualifications for an individual to come and become the new park host over at Cottonwood Creek. So if you know anyone who has access to a mobile home or a fifth wheel that they would be able to bring with them as part of the job, we do have that RFQ released, and it is on the city's website. So anybody that's interested can apply for that position. I talked a little bit about the Outer Spatial app already, but we're looking for late summer release on that. And then the other exciting thing that we're going to be having happen this summer is that concerts are returning to Moonlight Beach this summer. So we have 2 concerts in July, and then we have 2 concerts in August. So we're very excited to produce those again this year. And that.
I have a question about the RFQ for El Portal. Are you going to be making any changes, or do you have any idea what happened that there were no applicants?
Sure. So I can speak on that. I did ask Colette to do a little research on some feedback on applicants and how many that we received. And the feedback that we did get was due to the timeline. However, staff were trying to adhere to a timeline that the school district wanted us to do. So we let the school district know when we put that timeline out, we're going to do our best, but it is a very aggressive timeline. And if we don't get qualified applicants, we may have to go back out for RFQ.
So what is the timeline? How much time are you going to give the applicants?
Sure. So I'm going to turn that over to Colette because she's working on that right now.
So had a conversation with the principal at Paul Ecke, and they are hopeful that we would be able to have that artist work with the children in September or October. So I mentioned a little earlier, we're hoping to have it re-released with the new timeline in the next week or so. That would give about 2 months for the RFQ process, and then align with selection and the ability to connect with the kids starting in the fall.
Okay, good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Director Carlin. We'll move to 9B, Cultural Arts Division Report from Arts Administrator Murphy.
Well, it is a very busy time, and all good things are happening. I've mentioned before our Wednesdays at Noon concert series. We started doing some streaming to the Encinitas Union School District. That is officially up and functioning for them, and we've gotten feedback from the school where they've shared some of the students' feedback, and the kids are loving it. They're bringing their lunches into the libraries. They're getting to watch some really amazing music. It is our hope to extend that option to the Cardiff School District as well as to the San Diego Union High School District. So this was just getting it going. It's working beautifully, and I hope to have the other kids in Encinitas get to experience that very soon. As you also know, being May 2nd, we have officially started the Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey window, and events are happening all over. I've gotten some of you trained in this, and I'm going to connect with the rest of you to get you trained on it. It's really quick, but there's just some really important pieces. There will be another training opportunity this week, and I'll reach out to you and let you know what that is because I don't have that on me. But it's going to be at city events as well as organizational events within Encinitas. So going out and being able to capture that data to help support our arts community. Art Night is May 14th. So we're going to do that very similarly to how we did that in March, where the City Hall is not going to be available during Art Night itself, and those artists are going to be at the community center. We're also hosting the Institute of Contemporary Art at the library, so that's pretty exciting. So in terms of volunteers, I only have 2 locations I need help with. I will be out of town for the Americans for the Arts annual conference in mid-May. I'm looking forward to sharing what I learned there. There's a lot of sessions on public art, funding of public art, and public engagement with arts programming. So that ends my division report. I've covered a little bit about Wednesdays at noon. The artists reach out to us. 2022 is almost completely booked, and we've started booking well into the first quarter of 2023. So it's a very, very nice series. If you're ever available Wednesday at noon, I encourage you to come by. It has been filling up. By about 10 of 12, it is a full house. So if you know of anyone who wants to go, first come, first to be seated. We chatted a little bit about Art Night, and we have a Music by the Sea on May 20th. I will miss that. As I said, I'll be at the Americans for the Arts conference. This act is a sax player and a pianist, both from UCLA. They're spectacular. I'm sad I'm going to be missing it. If you are available, I highly recommend you go. And that is the end of my report.
I had a quick question. Do you have a ballpark number of how many art night attendees there usually are? Is there any kind of cap? Do you max out, or how does it usually?
I wouldn't say that we max out. There are door counters at the library. That is my most accurate number, and it does fluctuate a little bit, usually between about 250, and then during the summer months, it is as high as about 600. We have volunteers with a clicker who count at the other facilities, so those aren't quite as robust, but for the times when I'm able to have a volunteer for the duration of an event, that is mirrored for sure at the community center. City Hall is usually a little bit lower. The other facilities, the other organizations that are participating share differing numbers depending upon what kind of activities they've got. I'm also able to get some really interesting numbers when I have a volunteer on the shuttle for the full duration of the event, because I ask them to count as guests get on the shuttle. So it varies,
Yeah.
but it's still a pretty well-attended event.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I guess that brings us to 9D, Encinitas Friends of the Arts report from Commissioner Lees.
Well, Naime is very busy as always, and she's putting together a performance. She's bringing artists together to do a performance piece that is around Iranian calligraphy, and it's contemporary, but it's using traditional, it's weaving traditional in and out of it as well. And there will be musicians and dancers, and the artist will paint the dancer, and also he's going to do a painting that will then be auctioned off if anybody wants the painting. And because of COVID, we're keeping the food very simple. It will just be tea and cookies. And I believe it's June 18th. I'm not positive of the date.
It is. It's June 18th at the community center.
And among other things that EFA does is support arts, like the big Jeffrey Laudenslager sculpture. We actually raised the money to pay for that to be donated to the city. And so we are constantly doing that. We're working on coordinating funding to help pay for things at Pacific View. The things that will make it an art center and instead of just a functional building. Maybe raised floors or movable walls or the kinds of things that are not going to be covered by the $7 million that's been set aside. And I guess that's about it right now, because she's also doing some other things, but they're not necessarily happening right now.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Item 10, Commissioner Member Initiated Agenda Items. I believe we do not have any. And future agenda items added by commission members. There are none. And are there any commissioners' reports tonight? Okay. With no further reports, I'm going to move forward and adjourn tonight's meeting at 6:01 p.m.